So I was sitting down as one may do, and I was thinking about the idea of the teenage experience and how, at least in my life, I'm sure many of you guys can relate if it's in the title of this video, is I had a bit of an atypical one. Like it wasn't very typical, and obviously there's ways I can talk about sappy and all that stuff, but just in generals, like it sounds like genitals, but in kind of the things, it was not like that, and so I kind of just want to talk about that, the experience or whatever, and so we can have a little feedback or whatever about it. But yeah, like I guess technically so teenage. So really high school. I kind of focus on high school. High school being I was super undersized, like 5'6", 120 on my driver's license, which is I'd say pretty undersized. For a girl, I think you could get away with it, but a guy, it's very undersized. And so with the relationship love department, I was not great. It's like the worst cocktail possible to be undersized, shy, skinny, and not exactly doing any of the partying stuff. So for me, it was not. It was like it's kind of like in some like movie where there's like the nerds or the jocks or whatever. Like I was like, I don't even remember like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I was like equivalent of like a mix of the main kid and his friend or whatever. I should know this better. Heffley and what was his face? I was like a mix of those two. Just a complete social. I was kind of just an outcast, not even necessarily like. I just wasn't a thing. Like I just wasn't a tangible person. So when it came to love, it was not a real thing. Same with like partying and stuff like that. And it's not like obviously like there's like reasons for that connected to like what I was talking about earlier. But there also is the fact that I had a very like strong connection to family, and so I was so focused on like time with family, especially like my dad and stuff like that, that it was really easy for me to be a social outcast in other areas because I didn't really care to whatever. Like I would like sure like the friends department was not great. Like I had a few friends and stuff like that and whatever, but it was very below average, as I would say, like very much. But I wasn't really thinking conscientious of like, oh, I wish I had more. Like it wasn't like that necessarily. It was honestly more that I just had more time to hang out with like my dad and stuff like that. But yeah, so those kind of things make it so that it's really tough. And especially, and then connect the dots with being undersized. Technically, I mean, if I was some like insane athlete, if I was insanely good, then I could have maybe played football. Like I like football a lot. I play football, do a lot of football stuff. I made that whole YouTube channel of talking about like hundreds of videos of talking about football. I like football a lot. But you can't really play when you're 5'6", 120 as like a junior or a sophomore, junior. You're not gonna get playing time or do anything. So football was off the table. Basketball, unless I was really, really good, there was not a shot. And you got to think, okay, in an ideal world, let's say I was 6'4", 200, whatever. I still had this massive amount of anxiety and shyness to where I was so nervous, and one of the biggest things I remember being nervous about is the idea of forgetting or messing up plays. And at the positions I would play, and like the positions I like would be typically good at or whatever, would be like point guard in like basketball, and then like quarterback in football or whatever. And point guard, you gotta like kind of be the facilitator. You gotta like pass it to the other people and kind of know certain things and X, Y, Z. And there's not much plays necessarily in basketball. Like there's a lot of plays, but it's more so like kind of like dependent on the defense versus like football. You have an initial play that you go into like the thing going and you have like the routes, stuff like that. Football is a lot tougher, and that scared the hell out of me, the aspect of thinking that I would have to memorize all this stuff, because I'm just absolutely terrible. I always thought I'm absolutely terrible at memorizing. I don't quite know if I actually am terrible. I think that when I put a pressure on myself to memorize something, I'm really bad at it. But like I talk a lot, and I like when you have conversations about stuff, like I remember stuff decently well, but I think when it comes down to being like when there's something like, oh, you got to know this by this, like I'm terrible. Like any sort of test or any sort of things where I had to memorize stuff, I've done god awful at, because I'm just not good with the combo of memorization pressure. And I don't even think necessarily playing or like I think I'm pretty confident in my ability to like play like sports or do whatever, or like when in high pressure type situations. I mean, I'm not great at speaking in front of people, but in a lot of situations, I feel like I'm confident in it. But for some reason or another, when it comes down to memorizing things, that's a different thing. Like I could, like if you're just saying, hey, like just play football, just give each of your guys routes, or give them all routes and then just play. I'm like a billion times more confident than hey, you got to memorize, okay, like you got to memorize the 30 plays by the game, like I would be bricking it. It would be rough. So that's a long way of saying, okay, sports were kind of out of the picture. I mean, I played golf, freshman golf, where I was barely, I mean, me and my friend were kind of just hanging out doing nothing. Well, we were not even technically a part of the group anyways. And then I played like little basketball, but I was absolutely terrible. I mean, I'm undersized, don't have confidence in anything. And I wasn't really that like diligent about practicing, so I wasn't good at all. And I was whatever. We're kind of cooking up the recipe for one of like the awkward, shy. I mean, I'm like not unathletic, but I'm like really skinny, like whatever. So it was very much a recipe for not having that teenage experience. And then so you got none of the love, none of the relationship stuff, that thing. The athletics are pretty much ghost town. I mean, I was playing a little flag football going into high school stuff, but it felt like the universe, and it felt like internally I was like, yeah, sports is not quite. And what's funny is senior year, I sprouted, got high. I was still kind of skinny and stuff like that, but I could have. I mean, the idea of like playing sports or whatever could have been a thing, but by then I was already done. I was clocked out, so I was like, no shot. But yeah, so so the teenage experience for me, for the most part, was spent in the time hanging out with my family, and like especially my dad. Like that was kind of my teenage experience, and so yeah, going into college, that was kind of the same thing. And what's funny is, okay, in a darker tone or whatever, Dad died interestingly, a week after I turned 19. So it's like right after right as I'm getting towards exiting my teenage experience, that's when he so that's why I'm saying like my dad was such a big part of it. Makes sense looking back. You're like, okay, he was such a big part because that was the end of my experience with him. So then going out of it, but like out of college, right when he passed away, that's when I started getting friends. That's when the friends thing started to happen. That's when athletics wise, okay, I'm not going to play for the ASU football team. I'm not going to play for the ASU basketball team, but sure, I could like do like intramurals or play X, Y, Z. And so I was like playing a lot more. Like I'm actually not bad at stuff. And so it kind of, in a sense, I felt like my college experience pre-COVID, because COVID kind of knocked things away, but pre-COVID was like my version of a high school experience. I kind of got that in 8 months, and then COVID came, and then it kind of the next 2 years would kind of wash it. And then senior year was kind of my college experience, but it wasn't really, even then I really didn't do much, but there was a certain experience there. But yeah, so the teenage years for me, and I'm sure many of you guys can relate, hopefully, or whatever. Hopefully this little dialogue, maybe you could share something about it. I don't know. I just kind of made this video because it was on my mind. But hopefully it kind of like, I don't know. It makes it show like, it's just like we all got our own little experiences, and I'm thankful for what it was. Like I was able to have that time with my dad. I was able to grow in ways and think and get good with myself, and instead of losing myself in other things. And so although I didn't party, although I didn't have any relationships, although I wasn't some like 5-star athlete or anything, I'm glad that it went the way that it did, and I can see why going forward that it had happened the way it did. So yeah, just let me know what was your experience. Hopefully you enjoyed this little chat, subscribe, like, and all that stuff, and see you guys next time.